On today's show, I discuss the possibility of the Washington Commanders drafting Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker in this year's NFL draft. And then there's a trade rumor going around surrounding Montez Sweat, saying that he could be landing in Chicago in the coming days. Can't wait to break it down with you Commanders fans. But first, make sure that you're subscribed to the brand new NFL Draft channel here from Chat Sports. If you like NFL mock drafts, if you want team-specific 7-round mock drafts, you want player analysis, interviews, rankings, all that great stuff, we got it for you on NFL Draft by Chat Sports. If you're like me, can't get enough NFL Draft content, this is the channel for you. Go ahead, click that subscribe button for the NFL Draft channel today. Welcome in, comrades. My name is Jack Sperry, and this is the Commanders Report. On today's show, I am going to be discussing the possibility of the Washington Commanders drafting Hendon Hooker, quarterback out of the University of Tennessee. Hendon Hooker is somebody that has been on the Commanders' radar here for a couple of weeks now. There's been some rumors going around. I am going to address those and give you my full scouting report on Hendon Hooker later on in the show. But first, let's talk a little bit about what Hendon Hooker did last year for the Volunteers. 6'4", 218 pounds. He's got good size. And then you look at the production. Almost 70% completion percentage, over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Unfortunately, his push for the Heisman Trophy was cut short by a torn ACL. He's not going to be able to hit the field for whatever team drafts him until August. So the 33rd team was discussing the possibility of the Washington Commanders taking Hendon Hooker in this year's NFL draft, and this is what they had to say. Hooker landing in Washington would signal the end of the Sam Howell experiment. Brissett was a less prolific runner in college than Hooker, but he would be a good year one mentor. We'd expect Brissett to start for roughly half the season before the Washington Commanders give the keys to Hooker. So before I give my official full scouting report on Hendon Hooker and whether or not the Commanders should go ahead and draft him, go ahead and share this video on Twitter, and I will give you a shout out, or not a shout out, a retweet personally on Twitter. This is what you have to do to get your retweet. You got to click that share button down below here on YouTube. You got to select the Twitter icon. You got to click post to Twitter, and then you have to tag me in your post at Jack_Sperry. You do all those things, I will give you a retweet. We're trying to expand this channel out to as many Commanders fans as possible. So if you want to retweet on your Twitter, go ahead, follow these steps right here to get a retweet on your Twitter. All right, now let's talk about Hendon Hooker, quarterback prospect with Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis, those top 4 guys likely gone by the top 10. Could the Commanders look to get a guy like Hendon Hooker, if not the second round, maybe even the first round? He is definitely being rumored to being a first-round quarterback right now. Mike Tannenbaum had him going number 5 to the Seattle Seahawks. But in terms of my scouting report, guys, he's one of those tough guys to scout because in many ways he's very polished. He's got the best footwork out of any quarterback in this class. It is so clean, and he just doesn't have any wasted movement, which is what you really, really want to see. He's pretty darn good at mental processing too. He can go through his progressions real nicely and make the right decision. He's a good decision maker, which is proven by the fact only 2 interceptions last year for the Volunteers. He's got good arm strength, not great arm strength, and the same thing with the athleticism. You're not gonna fool him with Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields, but this dude can run. You have to account for him in the run game. Now the cons is that he's 25 years old. This guy is a dinosaur compared to what NFL draft quarterbacks are usually, man. And you got to take that into account because if you're drafting him to either be your backup right away or you're trying to get him to start right away. And right now the deep ball accuracy is not exactly what I would want it to be for my franchise quarterback. And then of course the injury concerns. He tore his ACL last year. Is he even going to be able to play next year full strength? That's a serious concern, especially when you take into account that he's already 25. He might not make his first NFL action until he's about 26 or 27, which would be absolutely ridiculous. And then the offense that he ran at Tennessee was very college-esque. It's just lots of wide splits. They really ran only like 15 pass plays at Tennessee. So I really think that his adjustment to the NFL game is going to be in question. But at the end of the day, he could fit into any scheme. And I think that at the end of the day, he's probably going to be a backup quarterback in the National Football League when it's all said and done. So after all this, taking all this into account, if I were the Commanders, I would not take Hooker, especially not in round 1. Do not waste the 16th overall pick on somebody that might not even play for you because of injury concerns next year. He's already 25, all these different things. Here are the reasons why I wouldn't go and draft Hendon Hooker, at least in the first round. Okay, obviously the age, 25 years old, man, that has to take into account. There's so many other quarterbacks that are so much younger. You get so many years out of them than you would Hendon Hooker. I think if you draft Hooker, you're probably drafting him to play right away, or at least when he's physically capable of playing. And then you got the injury concerns with the ACL, man. Is he going to be able to have the same athleticism coming off that ACL? That's a serious concern. And then is he even going to be able to play next year? That's a serious concern, and it's still unanswered. I mean, right now the expectation is that he's going to be able to get back on the field in August, but I mean, it's definitely going to be a transition period for him to get back to 100%. And then my final concern, maybe even my biggest concern, is that can he handle an NFL offense? At Tennessee, it was kind of a Mickey Mouse offense. They ran kind of the same 15, 20 plays in the playbook time and time again. Now, to Hooker's credit, he knew those 15 to 20 plays like the back of his hand. He could run those plays any day of the week, and I mean, he would just do it fantastically. He could find the right person. He knew the personnel. He knew who would be open and where against whatever coverage. Like, he was a master at those plays. But in an NFL playbook, you got to master not 15 or 20 plays, more like 50 passing plays or more, and you have to make adjustments in game. Can Hendon Hooker handle that kind of offense? I'm not sure if that question's been answered throughout his college career, and that concerns me a bit. So my grade for him is that he's a late second-round player or early third-round player. I think that he's got some polish. I think that once he's capable of playing on that ACL, I think that he's going to be a pretty darn good quarterback, and he could maybe even be a starter someday, especially if that ACL heals nicely. But the thing is, there's so many unanswered questions about Hendon Hooker, and then you take into account the size. I just wouldn't go ahead and I just wouldn't draft him. I really wouldn't think about taking him in the first or maybe even in the second round if I were the Commanders, because you already got Jacoby Brissett and Sam Howell. I'd let those guys battle it out in camp, see what they've got, and then, as the season goes on, just try to surround them with talent as much as possible and see if one of those guys can be your guy. And if you can't make that happen, then you go and get a quarterback in the 2024 draft class, which is absolutely loaded with quarterback talent. You take a look what the Commanders have at quarterback right now. Jake Fromm, he's pretty much out of the picture. He's just kind of depth there. You got Jacoby Brissett and Sam Howell. Right now, those two, one of those guys is going to be your starter for 2023, in my opinion. I know there's rumors about the Commanders getting Hendon Hooker or maybe even trading up for a guy like Will Levis. If I were them, I'm sticking with these two guys, and I'm trying to put as much talent around them, try to make the playoffs with one of these dudes in 2023. So coming up here, there is a trade rumor that Montez Sweat could be traded to the Chicago Bears. Can't wait to break that one down for you here. But first, let me know in the comment section, would you draft QB Hendon Hooker in round 2? So not round 1, with the second round pick, would you use that second rounder on Hendon Hooker? Type D if you would draft him, or type P if you're passing on him for another rookie. All right, now let's get into this Montez Sweat business. Is he heading to the Chicago Bears? Now, there's a rumor going around that Montez Sweat, somebody that had a really good year in 2022, 45 tackles, 8 sacks. He's a really, really productive player. He's athletic, 6'6", 262, a really effective defensive end for the Washington Commanders. Personally, I don't want to see him go. He's so dang good. But here's also the thing, man. The Washington Commanders, they are spending a ton of money on their defensive line, which granted is arguably one of the best, if not the best, in the National Football League. You got Chase Young, who went number 2 overall in the NFL draft just a couple years back. He's about to get paid a big contract, especially if he has a breakout season next year. And then Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne, man, they both have the bag, man. They're both making massive contracts. So if there's an odd man out, it's probably Montez Sweat. This is a loaded edge class in this year's NFL draft. You can trade Montez Sweat for a high-value draft pick or multiple picks, and you could draft his replacement this year, bring in a young guy that's capable of starting, and you still have one of the best defensive line units in the National Football League. This is the trade idea that we have here with the Bears. So this is the rumor that's been going around. The Commanders would get the Bears' second-round pick, the one that they got from San Francisco, the 61st overall pick this year, and then they would also get the first-rounder for Chicago next year, okay? And all you have to give up is Montez Sweat. So not only can you use that second rounder to get Montez Sweat's replacement, but you could potentially have an additional first-round draft pick, and if the Bears aren't good again, that could be an extremely valuable draft pick, man. So these are the reasons why I would accept this trade. Number one, you just can't pay everybody on that D-line. I mean, that's just so much cheddar to be tossing around. I mean, you got Chase Young that's about to get paid, and you're already paying Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. You don't want to be giving Montez Sweat a massive, massive contract, even though he's arguably worth it. And then also, you get a potential day one starter in round 2 to replace him with this deal, which would absolutely be fantastic. And you don't even have to sacrifice your first round pick or anything else to, you can still grab a corner in round 1. The opportunities are limitless with this trade. And then also that additional first round pick next year could be extremely valuable because if Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett just aren't it for the Commanders this year, Ron Rivera gets fired, let's say, they could be bringing in like a Drake May or a Caleb Williams, and you could have that extra draft pick to trade up for one of those dudes next year. It's going to be a really, really great quarterback class next year. So if you need a QB, that extra first rounder would really be handy. I'm going to let you know if I think this trade is realistic in just a second, but let me know what you guys would do in the comment section. Are you making this trade? Are you trading Montez Sweat for a first rounder and a second rounder? Type yes or no in the comment section. Can't wait to see what you guys have to say about this one in the comments section. Personally, I don't think that this one is very realistic, guys. I think what's more likely is Chicago might give up like that, like a 2024 second rounder or maybe a 2024 first rounder, but that additional second rounder, I think that's going to put it a little bit over the top. I don't think this one is too realistic. So before we go, Bleacher Report has named one NFL free agent that the Commanders should sign to help their team before the NFL draft. And that one player that they have is veteran cornerback, Ronald Darby. And I actually really like this idea. Ronald Darby is a really good zone corner. And as Commanders fans know, Ron Rivera runs a very heavy zone system. Ronald Darby is somebody I think could really be a good fit here in Washington. You take a look at his stats over the last 4 years. Last year dealt with injuries, only 14 tackles, 1 forced fumble, no interceptions last year. Then you go into 2021, and over the last 4 years, he's actually dealt with quite a few injuries, so that's definitely one of the downsides to Ronald Darby. Only 2 interceptions in the last 4 years, all of those coming in 2019. He's been kind of on the downswing because of those injuries, because he is getting a bit older, but when he's on the field, man, I think that he's a really, really valuable player, and I think that he could really be a good piece for this Commanders secondary. You take a look at where the Commanders are at now. Kendall Fuller, pretty darn solid. You bring in Cameron Dantzler in free agency. You're hoping that Danny Johnson can be that nickel for you next year. Benjamin St-Juste is an interesting prospect. I think that him and Dantzler will probably be duking it out if they don't add another corner. But, man, you add Ronald Darby to this mix, and you really force Cameron Dantzler and Benjamin St-Juste to kind of duke it out here in camp for a spot on the team, or at least on the starting lineup. I think that would only elevate this secondary. And then if you draft another rookie, right, in round 1 or round 2, like a Joey Porter Jr. or something, we'll get into some of the rookies in just a sec. But I mean, if you add some of these corners, you really produce some really great depth in this cornerback room and some great competition that elevates everybody. All right, so in my opinion, guys, Darby is a really great fit for this defense. This is a very zone-heavy scheme, lots of off-man coverage, and that's exactly what Ronald Darby does best. He's a little bit of a lighter cornerback. He's somebody that's not particularly great in the run game, but he's somebody that is good in coverage. He plays with good instincts, and he's been around the block, man. He is a good player. I think he'd be a good fit for this Washington Commander defense. But if you want to go get a rookie in this year's draft class, these are the 5 guys that I think fit best with the Washington Commanders. Christian Gonzalez is that number 1 guy. Played pretty much an identical defense to the Washington Commanders with the Oregon Ducks. All they play there is zone. So he is, in my opinion, the best zone corner in this draft. If the Commanders want to get anybody, it should be Christian Gonzalez. Then you got Devin Witherspoon, who can pretty much play anything, has the best tape out of any of these guys in this year's class, in my opinion. Then you got Deonte Banks, really smart player, played every single coverage in the book there with the Maryland Terrapins. Really, really intelligent player. Everybody talks about his athleticism, but man, I really like his smarts as well. Joey Porter Jr., maybe not the best fit for this system, but with those long arms, with his speed, with the things that he brings to the table, Ron Rivera can make it work. And then Emmanuel Forbes, somebody that is great in off coverage. He's really, really skinny, so you can't really play him in press coverage. But that's okay because the Washington Commanders usually don't play in press. So he's a great fit and definitely an option for the Commanders in for sure round 2, but even in round 1, in my opinion. So should Washington draft or sign a cornerback to fill out their cornerback room? Type DR if you want to draft a rookie, or type SV if you want to sign a veteran. Can't wait to see what you guys have to say about that one in the comment section. That's going to be it for me today, Commanders fans. It's been a pleasure. Make sure that you go down and click that subscribe button for me right now. We're trying to get a full-time channel here on the Commanders Report. We are so close. My bosses are telling me we got a couple more 100 subscribers. We're going to get that full-time channel for you. So if you want daily Washington Commanders videos, you got to make sure you click that subscribe button for me right now.